Today, we have the pleasure of having Caleb Chapman of Colony House with us on the podcast to discuss the quartet's fourth record, the Cannonballers. The Cannonballers releases on February 3rd, 2023, seamlessly fuses surf, indie, and alternative rock with hints of pop and singer-songwriter influences. The band has kicked ass on past records, is still going strong, showing no signs of slowing down with the Cannonballers. Caleb, welcome back to the pod. We're happy to have you.
Thanks, man. Thanks, men, I should say.
It's all right. Only if my wife saw me that way. So now we have two new Icebreaker segments for you. The first is a single question. The second's a little bit more thorough. But we know that the whole band isn't present today on the interview, though they are still present with you in a certain sense, which is sad for us, but they're here in spirit. And just to remember and acknowledge their wonderful and unique attributes, we'd like to ask a single question. If each band member was a vegetable, what would they be and why?
Oh, man. Okay, well, I think, let's see, Scott would be a carrot.
That's a good one.
Because I don't know how this ties in, but it just hit me because he's our only band member with glasses, and carrots help your vision. So I don't know if that's kind of like doesn't totally make sense, but Scott's a carrot because it has something to do with vision.
Yeah.
Park is a potato. I don't know if that's a vegetable.
We'll allow it.
Sure.
Park is a potato, mostly because of the alliteration of park and potato. My brother Will is a pepper because he's spicy.
Nice.
So like a hot pepper specifically?
Yeah, he's a hot pepper.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Do I have to vegetable myself?
I
love
the way that sounded. I don't know what vegetabling oneself pertains. What's all wrapped up in that? But yeah, you should vegetable yourself, I think.
I'm gonna vegetable myself and say that if I were a vegetable, I would be wait for it. This is a big question.
Yeah.
I know. You don't want to regret
okra.
your answer.
What about okra?
Yeah.
Because I love it and I have memories of nope. I take it back, guys. Scratch it.
Yep.
Sorry, my brother is a beet.
Ooh,
that's
easy.
Yep. You almost missed out on that one.
Wow.
Good recovery.
Yeah. And with that in mind, maybe I'll be the pepper because I also like peppers, and I probably can be quite spicy as well, specifically with the beet.
I like it. That's the best answer we've had to this question, and it doesn't matter that it's the first time we've asked.
I didn't feel strong about it, but I'm glad.
No, you hit a home run there.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we're gonna actually do another game here. This one's a little bit more thorough, but you're at the point now where you have 4 records and a crap ton of songs. So we thought we'd create a fun little song quiz to test your own discography knowledge. So we're gonna have you fill in the blank where a Colony House song is the answer. So, for example, if the question was, "I was in Yosemite and decided to climb up," your answer would be
El Capitan.
There you go. There you go. Nice and easy. Nate, would you like to start us off?
It would be my pleasure, Andrew. I used to wet the bed blank.
When I was younger.
Nice.
Yep.
That's a deep one. Way to go. I mean, it's an album, but it's like it's an interlude track.
Yep.
The problem I have with running a podcast with Nate is that he sometimes writes things, so I have to read what he writes.
Okay.
Which is Andrew sucks at blank.
Andrew sucks at Hold on, I'm running through.
Mhm.
Think of the new record.
Wait, the new record also is on there?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, dang. Andrew sucks.
Sorry.
at everything.
More selection. Yep.
You got it.
I don't believe that. Okay.
Well, thank
I
you.
don't believe
There's a few things he's okay at.
that. Yeah.
All right, Nate.
It was in this moment at 34 years old, unemployed, living in my parents' basement, Cheeto dust crusted all over my fingers, addicted to Call of Duty and Mountain Dew, still sitting at the kids' table at family holiday dinners that I realized
I had to grow up.
Nice.
ding, ding, ding.
All right. The waiter told me to tell them when to stop with the Parmesan, and I said blank.
Keep on keeping on.
That's a good answer.
That's really good.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
So the waiters asked when to stop with the Parmesan.
Yep.
Yep.
They're giving you the parm.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, oh man, there's so many.
There is. I think it's second record.
Okay. Okay, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. Are you counting them down?
No.
Okay.
We went. We have a few
Yeah.
more, so we'll just.
Okay.
We went with I Want It All.
I want it all. It's good. I almost
Yep.
there was plenty on there. I was like,
Yeah.
I was lose control. Like
that would have been a great one. I like that one.
Yeah.
Okay, this one you're gonna have to stay with me for a little bit. We got a Bible excerpt here.
Ooh,
Then
good.
seizing Jesus, they led him away and took him into the house of the high priest. Peter followed at a distance, and when there was a kindled fire in the middle of the courtyard, and he had sat down together. Peter sat down with them. A servant girl saw him seated there in the firelight. She looked closely at him and said,
Don't I know you?
Yep.
That's perfect.
That's
All
good.
right.
I was like, dang, now I'm getting put on the spot if I know my body.
Yeah.
Don't you know it? All right, Andrew.
All right. When the Titans win the Super Bowl, it will be
When the Titans win the Super Bowl, it will be. Oh, I might need to ask for a hint. What record am I looking at? Do we know?
Uno.
yeah, that is one.
It will be. It'll be glorious.
There you go.
Yep.
Nice. This is a fun game, guys. Really.
We got two more. Two
Okay.
more. The Bills lost the Super Bowl blank straight times.
The Bills lost the Super Bowl.
Blank straight times.
This feels like should be a gimme, but
Think early 90s. Not for your music, but
like
for the
blank straight times.
You did reference this song earlier.
1, 2, 3, 4.
There you go.
yes, sir.
Okay.
Four straight times.
Dang,
Yeah, brutal.
I remember specifically. Did they ever play the Packers in one of those? Was the Packers one of those?
I don't
very
think
well
so.
might.
I think it was Cowboys, Redskins, and Giants. The whole
Okay.
NFC East, basically, besides the Eagles.
Wowzers!
No need to throw shade, Nate.
That's okay. You might get it this year. You might get it this year.
Where are y'all based?
I'm
you-
near Philadelphia. Nate.
And I'm Boston.
Okay, cool.
Yep. You chose Philly over Boston last time. I just want to rub that in one more
Ooh.
time.
It's
Dang.
okay. I'm not hurt still.
All right.
All right, last one.
Last question. Nate really did some research on this one.
Oh boy.
The Cannonballers blank. I don't know if I read that.
Canapolis, I think.
The Cannonballers blank are a minor league baseball team of the Carolina League and a single A affiliate of the Chicago White Sox.
Wait.
new record.
Where's the blank at?
So after Cannapolis, the
Okay.
Cannapolis blank. So it's a T.
Oh, wow. So golly, the Cannonballers new record. I mean, Cannonballers, maybe.
There you go.
Yep.
Dude, you know what? It's funny. I think I've seen some like merchandise for that team. Because like when I've just been typing in whatever Cannonballers
Yeah.
up, I've seen that logo pop up. Amazing.
Oh.
It's hardcore.
Wowzers, well done, fellas.
Right.
That really
Thank you.
I feel like my brain is like
I
starting
know. Hopefully it's not too much work. You still have a little bit left in there.
Yeah.
So Caleb, speaking of baseball, again, hit it out of the park. You did wonderful. It wasn't meant to be a band pun there. On a more serious note, the last time we talked to you was on the precipice of a global pandemic. And those times seem simple in hindsight. You were getting ready to go on tour for Leave What's Lost Behind. And it felt like there was just a lot of momentum building for the band and then shut down. And we can only imagine the disappointment. But we were wondering that over that next year or two, was there anything positive that was just unexpected that came out of COVID for the band?
Yeah. I mean, it's always tough because, like you always want to be sensitive to the people that it sucked for everyone. It sucked a lot worse for some people than others. And there were so many things that were a bummer about, you spend so much time working on these projects and then putting a tour together and it feels like, man, this is ripping and it's awesome. And then, that stuff happens and it takes the wind out of the sails. However, we felt really fortunate because that album just even lyrically and everything almost started making more sense during the pandemic than it did before it. And our producer Ben Shive actually texted us kind of right after we got kicked off the road and was like, no matter what you're feeling right now, I know it sucks. Like, I think this record was supposed to come out exactly when it came out. I don't want y'all to question that, and that was it was really encouraging, even though you have all these big dreams for it. I think for us, what ended up happening in that moment is, we transitioned from going like, well, how can we get these songs out on the road to how can we get these songs into people's homes still, and so I started working on actually our front of house engineer and my brother who plays drums in the band started working on just editing some of the live show together, just the music from the 14 or 15 shows we got to play on that tour. And we didn't even know our front of house was recording. And we started getting some mixes back and we're like, hey, this is actually pretty good. We could maybe do something. So we started thinking, well, we've got all this time. Maybe we put together a live album because we've never done that. And then I started going back through footage of creating the album, creating all the content. We'd done this out west trip that we probably talked about on the last podcast. And filmed a bunch of stuff out there. Lo and behold, I ended up making a whole movie from these songs being mixed to these videos, kind of elements coming together. And it was like, I did the first 10 minutes that we released on YouTube or maybe 15 minutes or whatever. And it got a great reaction. And I was like, I think there's more here. And so I just hunkered down literally just for 3 or 4 months and just poured through footage. We had a friend of ours collect a ton of fan footage. And so we incorporated a ton of iPhone videos from tour and just told the story like this. I guess the story that we discovered is, everyone has these moments where something unexpected happened. Right now, we're all in the same boat, and that is we've all been shut down. And this is what the band is doing with that moment. And the question is posed in the, in the movie kind of rhetorically, like, what are you doing with the shutdown? What are you making of this? So we put this together, we did, and then maybe one of the coolest things our band has ever done is in the middle of the pandemic, everyone started doing these pop-up, like socially distant drive-in shows. And we were like, well, we're making this movie. Let's do a drive-in show, but actually make it like a drive-in movie and premiere it. And then we'll come on stage after and play a show. And so we ended up doing 2 nights here in Franklin, and people drove from all over the place. And we showed the movie, played 2 shows outdoor, like 2,000 people or something. There was like hundreds and hundreds of cars parked. I mean, it was wild, dude. It was like throwing our own festival in the middle of the pandemic. And we're also like, we had friends and bands reaching out like, how did y'all pull this off? And we're like, I don't know, dude. Like, it was so sketchy. It was one of those things, in hindsight, I think we were desperate to just, it wasn't about, honestly, like, we needed to make money, but it really wasn't about even that. It was just like, I think the desire was like, these songs still have life, and we want to make sure that people can experience them.
Yeah.
And we were trying to create that for people. And that was what this show is about. In hindsight, if that show would have flopped, it'd be interesting to see where Colony House would be.
Yeah.
Because we put a lot on the line financially. I was like, we do not have the money we were putting on the line for this if it goes south, so it didn't go south. It worked out great, and ended up that movie got selected for some film festivals, and which was like a dream of mine. I don't care about like even winning awards or whatever. It was like, we made something good enough to be shown at their little film festival. Hey, look at us. That's awesome. That was I would say the long answer of just like a really beautiful moment in the middle of a storm. It was just, everyone felt, you could feel it in the air, like everyone felt desperate to be together. And I'm sure y'all remember, it doesn't matter what side of the political line you fall on, it was just so weird. And you couldn't, you like, as a band, you're like, we want people to be safe, we want people to feel comfortable, but we want people to live their lives and be able to enjoy music. That's what we do. So how do we figure this out? And you could feel it at that show. Like, everyone just was like, it's good to be around people, even if we're in our cars parked 6 feet apart from each other or whatever. So it just felt like it broke down all those walls. And it was, for the 48 hours, like a little taste of hey, we're gonna be okay. So that would have been the highlight. And that continues to be a Colony House theme, is like, it feels like a grind always, a struggle of sorts, of like, how are we going to make this tour work? How are we going to make this show work? I think that's every band, every entity probably ever, but like, for us, it's about creating things, putting a spin on something you think what it's all about, and then there's like some twist to it. It's like, that's the Colony House DNA of, oh, I wouldn't have expected that,
So cool to hear. The reason why we wanted to ask about the positives of COVID, and I think you answered so well, in the sense of like, it feels weird and wrong talking about the positives of COVID. It's the reason why we asked about the positives, because I think the record deals a lot with the negatives of COVID, the Cannonballers. And I think it's less about COVID in the sense of like, as a theme, and more just about how COVID for all of us magnified things that were already there, and brought surface things that were hidden deep below. And I think that's what the record feels like. It seems to be highlighting and focusing on all of those things. And so how were those 2 years or so of COVID formational for you and the band as a whole in the creation of this new record?
Yeah. That's a great question. It's funny because people have been asking. Well, I've been telling people, like, we didn't want to make a COVID album.
Mhm.
It was like in that time, it was like, just because we all of a sudden have 2 years to do stuff, I don't want that to be the inspiration of our next album. In hindsight, of course that's going to be the inspiration. Like, that's what, because we're an observational band. We write things about what we're experiencing, and we want to be an open book. So it's not our COVID album, but it is dealing with all the things we were thinking about in that time. So it is our COVID album. I gotta just anyways, I think you're right. It magnified so much culturally what we were going through, and like individually, I think the biggest takeaway for me is we were all forced into this like sabbatical. And if we're talking about positives, it's a hard positive to admit, but I think there was a little bit of grieving that happened when we were coming out of the pandemic, where it was like, you know what, we all found something really beautiful because we realized we were all going so fast, and this forced us to like pull the reins and slow down. And that is something I think that is built into us as humans, and we just ignore it. Like, we have to go to sleep. If we don't go to sleep, we will die. We will just eventually we just won't be able to take it anymore, and we'll get sick. And like, if you kind of magnify that, you have to incorporate those kind of things into life. And I think that's kind of what the pandemic did. And so, sorry.
No problem.
My notifications are not silenced.
It's okay.
Hold on, let me click the moon. Boom. Anyways, sorry, I'm rambling. But no. I think that was a huge observation for myself, is going, man, I've been cruising so fast, and I'm missing things, and I want to slow down, and I don't want this season to end. I do want it to end, the pandemic, but I don't want it to end and then just get back to where we were. And so I think ultimately that was a big part of it. I think another one was the pandemic brought us home for a long time, and we hadn't been home for a long time. And we all kind of fell back in love with Tennessee. It was like, oh, this is our home. We were all born and raised here. And there's a reason why we've stuck around for so long. And obviously we got friends and family here. We've got memories. We've got heartache, and also, so many, fond memories. And it all kind of creates what is home for us. So I think a huge part of this album was looking at Tennessee as as a beacon of light in all of the kind of craziness as well. And there's a lot of that woven throughout it as well. So that, I mean, I'd say the pandemic helped kind of shine a light on that as well. I could get into so many details on that, but I don't know. The last thing I'll say, sorry, I haven't collected my thoughts well, but like, the last thing I'll say is that, there were so many hard things that happened toward the end of the pandemic for a lot of us. It was when we were starting to figure out how to get it back on the road. It got awkward. with trying to figure out how to play shows again. And it got awkward in the band a little bit, which is all, fortunately, water under the bridge at this point. But like everything was uncomfortable. And then I had friends that I hadn't, kept up with who, lost loved ones, and it started hitting home really hard of like, man, have I been a terrible friend, or has time just kind of taken its toll and we're just not in community anymore, and that's okay because it's just the natural way of things.
Yeah.
Or I don't know, there's so many of those things where it's like coming to terms with life and death, and there was so much of that I think it got me in the feels a little bit, and I started looking back on even going back to childhood memories of being like, man, how do I find a meaning for this? Do I need to, or is there, or I don't know. I think that's the Cannonballers is sometimes I feel I've got a hold on an idea, and then other times I'm like, I have no idea. It's all confusing to me, and trying to come to terms with being okay with that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Terrible. If you can follow that, listener of this podcast, way to go. I'm sorry, but that's how it is up here.
I think fans appreciate that kind of conflict that you're defining, and sometimes holding tight to like, I have an idea, and sometimes letting go and going, I have no idea. And I think you explained it well. So thank you for taking us behind some of the concept of the album. We're gonna kind of transition a little bit into talking more specifics of the album a little bit. So on Leave What's Lost Behind, you work with Ben Shive as your producer. You already mentioned him earlier. We just wanted to see, did you work with Ben again? Did you work with a different producer this time? And what was the main difference in recording and production of this album compared to your past records?
Yeah. So Ben, so we worked with a new producer on this album. It was like a really intentional decision. Ben's produced so much of our stuff when I was younger, and then Leave What's Lost Behind. And we had known of and met our producer for the Cannonballers, Chad Copeland, many times, and have always wanted to work with him. And we had made every album up till this point in Nashville. And so we were like, hey, what would it be like if we did the whole thing somewhere else? And Chad lives in Oklahoma. And so we went and did a couple songs with him just to see if there was good chemistry. And there was awesome chemistry, like kindred spirits. And the creative process just was so aligned that we're like, man, this would be awesome. So we did the whole thing with Chad Copeland in Norman, Oklahoma. And we did about a week also down in El Paso at Sonic Ranch. Did a lot of the like heavy tracking, like big drums and stuff there. And it was just awesome, dude. It was a little tough on the families because usually recording time is when you're home. And we went away for recording, and it took a little longer than expected, but Chad is one of those dudes that just never settles. He's okay with like tearing things down and rebuilding them. And we did a lot of that on this album. We'd finish a song and we'd be like, what if it was like this? And then we'd start over. And he was there for it the whole time, which was really, really encouraging. I think we pushed it to the limits and just like wanted to make sure, we wanted to make sure the best thing was coming out next from Calling the House, as we always do. But like so many of those things you don't know unless you tear it down, start over, and you're like, actually, I think we had it built right the first time. Back to those.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the band has coined the phrase landlocked surf rock, which is the title of your intro track.
Yeah.
Despite living nowhere near the ocean, one of the main
Yeah.
sounds on the record is more of that kind of Beach Boys or the Trashmen surf rock combined
Yeah.
with the Colony House flair. And
Yeah.
in the past, you've mentioned U2 as a big influence, which has been clear in more your past work as a band. But who have been some influences for this new wave of surf rock for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, we've always, I'd say Only the Lonely started kind of this like,
it.
yeah, well, you know it. There's songs like Was It Me and
Yep.
I Want It All. And even like 1, 2, 3, 4. There's just a little bit of like these old doo-wop progressions.
Yes.
And the reason that happened was because after our first album, we would do like even Silhouettes and Second Guessing Games had, and even, I mean, Caught Me, the kind of the first half of the album.
Yeah.
People were like, you kind of have a Roy Orbison vibe. Do you listen to Roy Orbison? I was like, nope. But then I got super into Roy Orbison because of that. And that's what inspired Only the Lonely to the title of the album.
Yeah.
And after that album, we had toured with some folks, our friends in Switchfoot, who are quite the surf rock band, not in sound, but in they were like, you guys are like we played their charity event, the Bro-Am, and they were like, you guys are kind of like a surf rock band, but from Tennessee. We're like, yeah, that's cool. So we kind of leaned into that.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of it on Lee Was Lost Behind. I'd say that kind of Lee Was Lost Behind goes a little more U2 than Roy Orbison.
Yes.
But on this one, we just, landlocked surf rock was an early idea, and I was like, that is our genre. We just titled it ourselves because there's a little bit of this surf rock thing, but it's not total surf rock.
Sure.
But there's this twang to it that will, like, landlocked surf rock probably leans more rockabilly than it does even surf rock. But then you've got a song at the end of the album, like Do You Ever Feel, that has like a real kind of like twang to it in guitar tone. So we're like, this kind of encapsulates everything. It puts a parameter on the sound, and it kind of helps you make decisions. Like, okay, let's do that instead of this, because that kind of fits inside either the landlocked version of Colony House or the surf rock version of Colony House. So yeah, I forget the original question, but
you're good.
But just about influences, but I feel like you answered that along the
way. To that point, a big influence was a band. They've always been an influence, but a band that Chad works a lot with called Broncho. Out of Oklahoma is like, there was so much of that because Chad's a huge part of their sound. And I'm trying to think on like newer influences. There's this band, I don't know where they're based out of. Dead. Have you heard of it?
DEHD.
Yeah.
Yep.
Also like really cool, like minimal, not surfy, but just like kind of like they've got these epic melodies over kind of minimal indie rock music. And they had recorded at Sonic Ranch, so that was kind of how we were introduced to them.
Yeah.
And can y'all hear that in the background?
Yeah, but you're great.
Okay.
It's totally.
That's Scotty.
It's perfect.
Working on his pedal board. Sounds like it's working. I'm trying to think of, you're so influenced by the kind of the scene you're in, and in Norman, where Chad is, there's a really cool community of music with Tulsa being close and Norman. That bands like Wildorado, who we've been fans of for a while, worked with Chad on a couple of their albums. Their sound's influential. They've got kind of a Kings of Leon, like they would lean a little more in the landlocked side of things. And band called Sports, who works a lot with Chad. And even Christian, one of the guys in the band, helped kind of assistant engineer for a couple weeks. And so it's just cool. There's just a cool community of really, really good music makers out in Oklahoma that we felt like we found ourselves a part of, and we're very fortunate. It was really cool.
So you were touching on this kind of in between space where you're both and sort of the landlock and the surf rock. What's the process? You talked about like trying to make decisions around songs. You have certain songs like the title track, which transitions to more of a surf rock verse, for instance, to a modern arena rock type chorus. What's the overall process for the band in deciding, okay, like how deep do we want to go in this subgenre of rock? How deep do we want to go over here? And creating a balance of it all. Like, because I think some songs are like flowing in between and some songs are a little bit more distinctly one or the other.
Yeah. I always want it to be more like congruent or like consistent. That's like, as an artist, you're like, I want it to all be this vibe and it'll be a really clear message. We really went after this sound. Yeah. Even down to like, this would be way easier to market if we just said, this is the sound. Yeah. But like, I think after 4 albums, it's like, I'm just not, that's gonna be maybe part of the Colony House thing is track to track. It's gonna kind of keep you on your toes.
Yeah.
And so you hope to find the threads that tie them together. Like how it's like building a set list almost. It's okay, how do we get from landlocked surf rock into Would Ya Could Ya? That makes sense. Into Cannonballers. Okay, we're kind of in this like surfy indie rock thing, and then we go Trying to Survive, I think, which is a big kind of indie like alternative rock anthem.
Yep.
And you go One of Those Days, which is
like a pop track, and for you guys at least, it's still rock, but for you that's like a pop track.
Absolutely. And that was like, I mean, and it was even poppier before, like the demo was like even like we kind of, I would say that was another influence, was like the Milky Chance thing, where it's like, okay, how do you get, these guys are doing like really cool pop stuff, but it's with this kind of alternative flair, real minimal, but real engaging. And then, but then like, we can't help ourselves doing the like, Do You Ever Feel type songs that are these like big, spacious, that's like, if we, I don't know, those are the ones that come natural to the band, where it's just like, oh, we could do this all day. Like this is so easy. And that, it's like the in-between stuff, One of Those Days, that's a stretch more on like, how do we make this feel like a rock song still, but it's a pop song. I don't know. That's where Chad came in really handy, because Chad works, I mean, he's worked on Shawn Mendes stuff, so it's like he gets that world, but he's a guitar player, synth player, like he kind of played as much of everything on the album as all of us did. So down to like the voicings of chords on the guitar is like, well, if we did this would feel more rock than pop. So as opposed to, this inversion of the chord, let's do, your 1/5 power chord, and that'll probably take it a little more into the Colony House world. So so many factors into all that stuff, but Colony House is just kind of a big old like swirl of influence, and I think it comes out in the songs we're writing. I think like as each album happens, and in hindsight, I think we like narrow it down a little more and start to figure it out even more. But I mean, we get to play music where I use the word loosely, but we're artists, and if you put artists in a box, that sucks.
Yeah.
Our art is doing things that make us like smile and like it makes us feel something. So that might be a landlocked surf rock that's this goofy, weird, eclectic track, or maybe it's I'm Not Dying. That's like this cowboy kind of sit around the campfire song. And both of them inspire us.
Yeah. You talked about pushing yourself and the band pushing themselves vocally. We talked last time about how you're always trying to push the envelope, develop your sound. You told this really cool story about John Foreman, how he's like, if you can think it, you can sing it. On the Cannonballers, which it still sounds stupid, but I feel like he's just that bold and that good that he can say that. Yeah. On the Cannonballers, I think one newer technique, at least in our perspective, a newer technique you've used throughout the record is more of a shout singing, which is really cool. I don't know the correct term, what that would be. But for instance, like on much of the vocals on Trying to Survive, the harmonies on One of These Days in the chorus, for instance, sprinkled throughout Land Rock, Surf Rock, there's a little bit of like shout singing or however you want to categorize that. Yeah. With this balance of yelling and singing, it's both like raw and melodic at the same time, which I think is really cool. What led you to discover or try out this newer technique or approach? Or do you even see it the way I'm describing it?
No, I see it that way. And it's coming to bite me in the butt, so to speak.
For live shows?
Yeah. I think it's just me writing songs in the wrong key. And then it's like, you get used to it and all your guys are like, nope, it has to be in that key. It feels good. If you lower it, you lose the intensity. And I'm like, well, we'll see how long this tour lasts then. So I don't know. I do always want to push myself and figure out, ways to push my vocals where I'm not hurting them, but like, I don't know. I think, you discover, I think I started uncovering that on Leave What's Lost Behind. I may have mentioned it on our last podcast, but I recorded a lot of those vocals by myself.
Yeah.
It like, I was kind of like, okay, when I'm not intimidated by a room full of people, I seem to go for things a little bit more, and maybe I can do this. And so on this record, I recorded them with everyone in the room or with Chad or whatever. And I just decided like, hey man, I am a little bit of a head case and I know that. So I'm not going to overthink these vocals. If you think it sounds good, tell me to move on. I don't want to sing it just to sing it. Like, so the quicker I can get through a vocal, it used to be the opposite. I used to be like, well, give me like 20 and then pick the best one. Now it's like, if I can do it in one or two, if it sounds good, well, let's carry on, get out of here. I'll just overthink it and then get stuck. So that's kind of even live. Like, I don't really care if I missed a note. It's okay. I'm like, if I have to prove to you at this point that I can sing, then maybe I'm not your guy. It's like I've never, since being a kid and trying out for musicals or the school like program where I got the solo or whatever, I've always been insecure in my voice. And I mean, I was literally thinking about this today. I remember in like 6th grade, I was at rehearsal and the whole school was there, and I missed my moment to start singing and I couldn't recover. And I just started crying in front of the whole school. And I'm like, it's a funny thing to think back on, but there's some kind of trauma attached to that, because I'm definitely still about it. And I think about that. If I think about those things too much before going on stage, it's why artists will be like, I got to cancel the show tonight. I'm having a panic attack or whatever. Because there's so much that can go wrong with a show that if I think about it too much, I'll start panicking. And I'm like, you know what? I'd rather just get out there and I'll probably forget the words. I'll probably crack at some point. I'll probably go for something and it's not going to happen.
Mhm.
And the more I can just like be comfortable in that and be like, that's just part of the Colony House sound, I guess. Then I guess the more emotionally healthy I am and mentally healthy I am. So that's kind of how I treat even the process in the studio now, where I'm like, if the emotion is right, that's enough for me,
Yeah.
So.
Well, I love the album title, The Cannonballers, because I think it evokes two opposite images, one of war and fighting and the other of fun and happiness. Thematically through the album, both of these are present, less the literal war and more you fighting for specific people or even yourself.
Yeah.
Then also there's this childlike sense of joy, which is emphasized especially through the sound of the record.
Mhm.
So what about the title made you gravitate towards it? And how do you feel like it represents the overall theme of the record?
Yeah, the Cannonballers we loved it because we were like, this was an alter ego. The Cannonballers, like it sounds like a band name, and we love that about it. Our manager was like, it's confusing. I was like, I don't care. I think it's awesome. The other thing the Cannonballers had going for it is it's 5 syllables long. And we seem to have found ourselves sticking to the 5-syllable theme with our album titles.
Yeah.
That was a Kings of Leon thing that when we were making our first album, we had read about, and we're like, wait, youth and young manhood, only by the night, because of the times, mechanical bull, even walls, which was an acronym for something, was
five letters.
Yeah, all of them have been five syllables. So we were like, well, work for them. Maybe we'll see. Hasn't quite panned out the same way, but the Cannonballers had that going for it. But we on one hand, we feel like the Cannonballers, like you said, is like a kid cannonballing into the water, not a care in the world. It's like the scene from The Sandlot where Mr. Ham Porter goes hammonballing into the pool, and like that energy of like, this is all about there's like a little bit of mischief, but mostly just charisma and youthful naivety and all that good stuff. And the Cannonballers, like there's like the other side that's kind of it's kind of what I've used a lot of like skeleton imagery in the new artwork and stuff, where it's like kind of the yin and yang, like there's this like darker kind of road rally, no care in the world for law or anything. It's just like this is a need for speed. And that's that, if we go back to the beginning of this interview, kind of that juxtaposition of like it's the unhealthy cannonballer. It's the one like, gotta keep going, gotta bust through the walls. I don't care the damage that's done while I'm doing it. I'm a cannonballer, and there's something, it's like, if you can rein that in, that's a really confident, like powerful kind of person, or a powerful place to position yourself. But it's really easy to be unhealthy too. And same with the kid. It's like, that's really powerful, but it also can be unhealthy if it's if it's just childlike and it's just being unaware or whatever. So I feel like the Cannonballers is all about the in between. It's like the balance of good and evil, it's tales old as time. The balance of youthfulness and growing up. And I just felt like, I think all of us felt like it encapsulated the whole vibe of the album. Felt like everything could live under the Cannonballers. So
I think what's interesting is Leave What's Lost Behind. We had talked about how it's it's somewhat on the nose of a concept record.
Right.
The songs on the Cannonballers do not give this concept record sound or feel, but the title and the imagery and where you can go with that, I do think create this concept album feel, which I think I felt weird thinking about it because I was like, it feels like a concept album, even though it's not. And so I think it was just so cool how you guys were able to do that.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that, because that was a rule of ours, was at the beginning, was like, we don't want to choose songs based on the concept. We want all songs can live by themselves, but we're like, I think it's maybe part of kind of the way I like telling stories is like, it has to have some kind of concept for me to wrap it helps me finish songs. It helps me like find a rhythm or something. So but yeah, that's like exactly what ended up happening. It's like kind of conceptual in hindsight, but in the moment it was just whatever was happening.
So we're going to transition, close it out with favorite song. It's always an awkward question to ask an artist. And so just to give you you don't have to answer, but we'll give you some time to process. Andrew, what's your favorite song on the album at this particular moment in time?
At 2:00 Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to go with Cannonballers. The grooves and feel of that song get me every time. I think it's I think it feels so true to Colony House because of the grooves, and just I feel like you guys are really good at changing up time signatures and all that stuff, and this feels like that's kind of the underlying feel, but it's just so fun every time. And I feel like it grows on me every time too. So Cannonballers. Nate, how about you?
I'm going with Everything. I mean all the songs. No, I'm going with Everything, and part of it is because the front half of the record is boom, 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 boom. I think Everything hits that much harder because it is such a reprieve, and it like really slows you down, but then it elevates to this like really high soaring level. But for me, it's mainly the emotion of the lyrics and obviously the sound contributing to that. I think you talked about just like all these feelings with COVID, and this song like really like hits you in the feels. And so I just love that track because of that.
Hey, dude, that was the first song we did with Chad, like a year before we did the rest of the stuff. And he knocked it out of the park because it was like this singer-songwriter thing. And then it turned into like a rock and roll song. And what's so tricky about that lyric to me was like, is this just so on the nose that it's like, is it too cute? Is it too? And I was trying to explain it even to my wife. I was like, she's like, what's this song about? She's like, I think you know where I'm from. I know it's like, but to me, what's cool about that song, I love that song too. It's definitely a front runner because of how simple it is. I think the lyric and everything was meant to be like, and I think why it came out of the COVID season was like, sometimes the people that are closest to us are the hardest people to tell you love them. It's like it's like what why is that? Like why is it awkward sometimes to say those words? Like y'all know that feeling, right? Where it's like it's easy maybe in passing to say I love you to family or friends when it's just like it's like a response. Love you too. But to like look at someone in the eyes and say I love you is kind of awkward. Like I love my brother. To sit down and look at him and be like, hey man, I love you. It's an intense moment because and so I think that was the point of that song, to be like, this is for some people, maybe this is like, I really like this girl and I don't know how to tell her. That totally works. But maybe I've been married to this girl for 40 years and I do love her, but I don't really know how to tell her still. Like, how do I? So anyways, that's cool that you picked up on that. For me, it is a tough question. I'm gonna just to add one more to the pot.
Yeah.
I'd say it's kind of a tie between Do You Ever Feel and Man on the Run.
Mm.
Both kind of similar headspaces. Do You Ever Feel, I wrote from one of my best friends growing up. And I actually literally, like maybe a week ago, sent him the song because I haven't hung out with him in years.
Yeah.
Mm.
And but I mean, since like second grade when he came to the school I was at, we were best buddies through high school. And his mom was like a second mom to me. I'd stay at his house. They lived really close to school, so I'd just stay at their house and walk to school. I mean, so many memories. And Do You Ever Feel is just chock full of those things. Like the song opened with Meet Me at the Corner Church, which was this place where all the high schoolers would meet before they went down in Nashville or went down to Franklin or went to Bellevue, because it was right in the middle of all of our kind of suburbs. And it talks about kind of ambiguous imagery that are really specific memories for us, you know. And so I was scared to send it to him. His mom passed away of cancer right kind of toward the end of the pandemic era. And we were on the road, and it was such a crazy moment because he was there. Me and my family walked through the loss of my little sister a long time ago, and he was the first one. He was on senior trip, and he flew home in the middle of it and was like the first of my friends to kind of embrace me in that moment. And I was on tour in Orlando when his mom's funeral was, and playing to like 200 people, and I had to miss like my best friend's mom's funeral. And I was like, for 200 people for my music, like, I don't know, it just and not to downplay a show, and all 200 of those people are very important to me, but I just can't help but ask myself, am I a terrible friend? And so that was it was scary to send him that song a little bit, but then he texted me out of the blue on a day that I actually had a text typed out to him. I chickened out. But he texted me that day, and it was like, I forget, just checking up. And I was like, dude, I was about to send this to you, but I got nervous, but here's the song. And very beautiful moment of kind of reconnecting. And just maybe one of those, it kind of like ties into the everything theme. It's like there's someone I obviously love, their whole family, but it's hard to tell them, and hard to figure out how to tell them. So it's just a really important and special song to me. And Man on the Run is a similar kind of sentiment of just asking big questions, having conversations with myself, having conversations. A lot of my songs on any given day could be me talking with God, or me talking with my wife, or the conversations seem similar with the people that you care about. And especially when it comes to identity and figuring out who you are, so much of who we are is kind of how we're perceived and how we are in relationship to someone else. And that's a big part of, I think, some of these songs is identity. And I want to be me, but I also care about being me with other people. Like I can be the best me, but I want that to include the people I care most about. So Man on the Run's quite an expose on Caleb's soul.
Man. Well, Caleb, thanks so much for being vulnerable and sharing both about both those songs and everything you've shared. I think it's hard to open up. And I'm sure sharing with us is not nearly as hard as it was opening up to him. And so I think it's such a beautiful moment. And so it adds, I think why we do this podcast is kind of so somebody can listen to you sharing that, and it changes the record for them in a unique way because of something they've gone through or whatever. And so we just want to thank you. Thank the band for allowing you to leave practice. I know is probably on a break anyways, but and we just want to wish you the best of luck on this upcoming US tour and the future. We know bright things. Kings of Leon better watch the heck out because you are coming for them.
Oh man, hey, you know what? I would be honored. I'd be honored to approach their shadow, you know.
So we just want to say have a great day, and
thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all.
God bless you.
Yeah, same. Appreciate y'all.